Let this parliament know a new generation has arrived, and we are here not to decorate democracy, but to transform it.
Good morning, guys. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Once again, welcome to South Africa Lately, a channel that discusses South African trendy news. We do, however, grab here and there from international news when it is trending enough to be brought here. Please do understand that I'm not a politician. I do not have deep knowledge in politics. However, I am a South African citizen who is also a voter, and I do believe that my views count when it comes to political affairs of a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous country. So many things are happening within South Africa. So Duduzile Zuma reintroduced herself as the MKMP. The speech was so good to an extent that people were like, no, she didn't write that, Floyd wrote that. And others were like, so all along she has been any for free, meaning she hasn't had any impact in parliament since the appointment. And others are like, you know, that smile of hers, the beauty and the smile will have you voting for MK just for that. And she introduced the Borderless Africa idea that all the Pan-Africanism parties talk about. And people are now saying, you attack Julius Malema for saying this, and now Duduzile is coming saying this in the open. I understand that the borders came through the colonial times, but what I'm asking is, please let me know in the comment section, why is it South Africa that is leading on that the most? I want to know, please note my words, I said the most, which means even other countries are talking about it, but the most. And if we are calling for a borderless Africa, why are we not talking about, why do we still see other countries taking so much pride, even in this, taking so much pride in being, you know, like their sovereignty, like trying to protect it with all that they have? So why do we still have that? And number two, why are we not calling the most? Because we have this tendency as black people, I must say, of trying to do something on top of the rod. Why are we not calling for the purification of our individual countries? Let us look like we respect the law. Let us look like the people who have a goal to reach somewhere. You know, that is why, you know, we need to have something in common for us to be able to unite and say no borders. You see, when you look at Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, those three can unite. You know, those three can unite because they've got something in common and they are working the same. I don't know the inner workings of what they are doing, but I'm just talking about at a face value. They look like they have something in common, so they can move in unity. You know, they can move in unison. So I don't know about us. Anyway, anyhow, I want to share with you the speech that made people say, no, that smile, we can vote for MK just for Duduzile. So I'm even saying, Floyd must not test us. He must not come near you. Guys, I am not going to come back with more commentary, but what I'm going to say is that I really appreciate you watching my videos, and the next time you bump into my videos, kindly watch my ads in full. That support really goes a long way. This is in my next upload.
The next speaker is the Honorable Zuma Sambudla. Honorable members, please take note that this is the Honorable Zuma Sambudla's maiden speech. Behave.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, members of the Progressive Caucus, ATM led by President Vuyo Zungula, EFF led by President Julius Malema, NCC led by President Fadil Adams, UAT led by President Wanda Mhlatsi, MK led by President Jacob Zuma. Commanders, morning. I rise today not merely as a member of this House, but as a vessel of people whose voices have long been stifled by colonial borders, economic exclusion, and systematic inequality. I rise as a daughter of Africa and as a committed Pan-Africanist, As South Africa's representative in the Pan-African Parliament and as the chair of the Southern Caucus, I speak for the dignity of our people, from the townships of the Vaal to the rivers of the Congo. Our theme, harnessing parliamentary diplomacy for global solidarity, equality, and sustainability, must not be reduced to aspirational rhetoric. It must inform how we legislate, how we negotiate, and how we resist the status quo. Traditionally, parliaments were seen as domestic chambers removed from international politics. But in this multipolar world shaped by ecological crisis, financial imperialism, and technological war, Parliament must become a frontline soldier in diplomacy. Parliamentary diplomacy is not about exchanging niceties with diplomats. It's about deepening cross-border alliances for peace, for justice, and shared liberation. We must forge parliamentary alliances not only with BRICS, but with Latin America, with Southeast Asia, and crucially with our African counterparts. These alliances must pursue common agendas on human rights, decolonial education, indigenous knowledge systems, and the preservation of sovereignty. The Pan-African Parliament must be strengthened as a legislative counterforce to global bodies that are too often undermined Africa's autonomy. We are told that we live in a global community, but whose voices shape the community, whose lives are made expendable for the profits of the few? Global solidarity, particularly among the global South, must be reclaimed as a political weapon against neocolonial control. We reject aid models that entrench dependency, trade agreements that strip sovereignty, and debt regimes that handcuff development. South Africa must no longer serve as a proxy for Western interests on the African continent. As we assume the G20 chairship, we must ask boldly, are we vessels for global capital or catalysts for African resurgence? Let us remember the Bandung Conference of 1955 that taught us that solidarity is not charity. It's a strategy. That is why we recall it. That is why we honor it. That is why we extend it 70 years later into the world we want to build. The era of polite begging is over. This is a time for legislative activism, for championing human rights, Palestinian freedom, debt cancellation, and climate justice through our voices, not borrowed scripts from the global north. Progressive caucus. If we listen closely, there's a drumbeat echoing across Africa. It's coming from Niger, where youth are saying, we are not your colony. From Burkina Faso, where citizens are saying, we are not your base camp. From Guinea, Mali, and Gabon, driven by the rising anti-imperialist sentiment, insecurity, and frustration with corrupt, Western-aligned governments. What the West hastily labels as coups d'etats in the Sahel region, we as Africans must rightfully recognize them as coups de libération, coup of liberation. They are not extremists, they are not anarchists, they're simply tired of being polite about poverty. We too have a duty to stand in global solidarity, not only with those who make headlines, but with those who live in silence. Solidarity means aligning with Palestine, with Cuba and Haiti, not as charity, but as comrades. It means building alternative regional financial institutions that are free from Bretton Woods coloniality. It means standing with African nations, resisting African militarization and rejecting proxy wars on African soil. The UN Security Council cannot continue to remain a colonial relic, while the IMF and the World Bank are used as tools of economic strangulation. World Trade Organization rules should not be used to cripple African farmers, workers, or informal traders. Let us be clear, equality is not inclusion into unjust systems. It is a dismantling of those systems altogether. In plain truth, equality will cost someone privilege, and that's okay. Because if we're serious about justice, someone's comfort has to be disrupted. True equality demands that Africa no longer negotiates with a begging bowl. We must fight for equitable representation and global decision-making platforms, not as tokens, but as agenda setters. Domestically, we cannot call for equality abroad and preside over local government failures at home. When women walk kilometers for water, when youth are devoured by unemployment, and when service delivery collapses, we are betraying our Pan-African ideals. To those who hoard positions and privilege while our people suffer, we see you. The sustainability we speak of must go beyond environmental tokenism. We are not fighting for clean air. We are fighting for the right to live with dignity. Social sustainability means every child in the township has a school, a meal, and a dream. Economic sustainability means we shift from extractivism to beneficiation, that trade agreements favor local producers, that minerals feed development, not foreign stock markets. Let me say this clearly. Sustainability is not just about hugging trees and banning straws. It's about asking, can our people survive here with dignity in 20 years, in 50 years? It's about land. It's about food sovereignty. It's about whether the grandmother in Eastern Cape will ever see her grandchildren find work in the village, not just flee to the city to be swallowed by the hustle. And it's also about spiritual sustainability, reclaiming African indigenous wisdom, ancestral traditions, and ethical governments, rooted in Ubuntu. It means we do not measure progress in GDP alone, but in well-being of communities and the wisdom of our elders. To multinational corporations who brand themselves green while poisoning our rivers and looting our soil for economic gains, we see you. We demand a just transition, but one that is truly just for the African context, not standards imposed by Europe. Climate justice must not be the next frontier of imperial profits. We welcome the African Union's declaration of 2025 as a year of justice and reparations. But we ask again, how long must Africa wait? The West has no problem calculating carbon credits, but suddenly loses its calculator when it comes to reparations. Reparations are not historical nostalgia. They are economic justice. And for those who continue to sideline African women in diplomacy and governance, your time is up. We call for feminist foreign policy, one that is rooted in care, justice, and transformation, not the feminism of tokenism, but one that uproots patriarchal power at its core. We draw inspiration from President Tambo Nandi Ndaitwah and Speaker Lydia Katenda of Namibia, whose leadership embodies what a liberated Africa could look like. Let it be remembered, we are the heirs of warriors and workers, the children of Mkabayi, the sons and daughters of Biko and Mzala, the students of Sankara and Nkrumah. Let this parliament know a new generation has arrived, and we are here not to decorate democracy, but to transform it. Standing before you is Honorable Dudu Grenade Zuma. Gwaza mkoto gwaza.
Gwaza mkoto.